Hello, my name is Chris Neamtzu. I'm the city's Community Development Director, and I've had the distinct pleasure of working in the Community Development Department for the past 30 years. I'm going to tell a story today about the Villebois Village residential neighborhood. And before I do that, I'd like to tell a little bit of a story about how the Villebois project almost didn't happen. So I'm the resident storyteller here in the Community Development Department due to my tenure at the city. And it was the late 90s, and the city had been working on the Villebois precursor plan. It was a master plan called the Damish Area Transportation Efficient Land Use Plan, or DATLUP. DATLUP was in draft form. It was a very different looking plan from Villebois, and it was at that time that then Governor John Kitzhaber announced that there were going to be numerous new prisons constructed around the state of Oregon, and that one of those prisons would be located in the Portland metropolitan area due to the amount of prisoners that were essentially coming out of that area. The state began the process to supersite a prison and identified all state agency-owned land as the first priority for locating these facilities. For those that don't know what supersiting is, it's a state process as well as a federal process that allows the state to bypass local rules and regulations for land uses that are controversial, things like prisons or things like landfills. So the state is able to actually site these facilities with no local land use review at all. Damish State Hospital, which at the time was owned by the Department of Administrative Services, had recently been closed in 1995. And along with land where the Graham Oaks Nature Park is located today, which at the time was owned by the Division of State Lands, these lands were an immediate target for the prison siting and quickly rose to the top of the state's list for ideal sites to site a new prison facility. At close to 500 acres combined, these state-owned sites met the criteria for prison siting on almost every level. They had one major problem. They were close to schools and they were near residential neighborhoods. The announcement of a prison to be located at the Damish State Hospital was an immediate community concern. The city council and residents of the community banded together in an incredible and unified manner, conducting rallies with hundreds of community members coming together, calling for the preservation of neighborhoods and quality of life, the safety for children, and advancing a vision for a future residential neighborhood at the Damish State Hospital. It was truly an amazing grassroots effort at so many different levels across the community. And it was at that time that then Mayor Charlotte Lehan deserves most, if not all, of the credit for what happened next. She single-handedly spent weeks literally at the state capitol, day after day, trying to engage Governor Kitzhaber around conversations regarding the siting of the prison facility at the Damish State Hospital. After significant avoidance by the governor, ultimately she got the governor to sit down. She not only got him to sit down, but she got him to agree that if the city could find an alternate site that met all of the various criteria for prison siting, that he would consider it regardless of the state's ownership. And this was a massive breakthrough. This was the kind of breakthrough that the community really had worked hard to get to, and it was at this point that the city team, Community Development Department team, immediately got to work trying to find an alternative site, identifying alternative locations, and following extensive analysis with our brand new at the time geographic information system, which is computerized mapping software, city staff was able to identify a 100-acre site that met all of the state criteria. It was flat, it didn't have any significant wetlands or natural resources, it didn't have liquefiable soils, and it was in close proximity to Interstate 5, and it could be served with infrastructure in a relatively reasonable time frame. Those were the main criteria. So the city leadership was ultimately successful in relocating the prison to the Coffee Creek industrial area, and then quickly worked with the Oregon legislature to protect the Damish State Hospital. The legislature ultimately ended up approving a bill that statutorily mandated that the Damish State Hospital would be redeveloped into a mixed-use urban village of not less than 2,300 dwelling units. It was at this point that the future of the Villebois village was solidified. So if you fast forward several months from that point in time, the city, along with its partners at the Department of Administrative Services, who owned the Damish State Hospital, conducted a nationwide search for a master planner and developer of the Damish property. Numerous national development firms proposed on the project, with Costa Pacific Communities ultimately winning the award. Costa Pacific was coming off recent successes with a new urbanist mixed-use village at Orenco Station in Hillsborough, and their overall approach lined particularly well with Wilsonville's leadership vision. It was at that time that we collectively embarked on the process, and the vision for Villebois was created, first with adoption of a concept plan, which is a high-level kind of bubble diagram document, followed by a highly detailed master plan in 2003. And the very first homes were constructed shortly thereafter, adopting the master plan. The first homes came at the end of 2003. It's interesting to note that the city granted the last land use approval for the Villebois project in 2021. It's now 2025. Villebois is now 100% entitled from a land use perspective, and after 20 plus years, it's anticipated that the project will be complete as soon as market conditions, mortgage interest rates, and lending become more favorable for multifamily residential development, which is anticipated to be in the next couple of years. So now I'm going to transition to a portion of the presentation that's really focused on the Villebois master plan and the Villebois project itself, showing some historic photos of the site, as well as some images from the master plan and some images of construction of the earliest phases. This presentation was originally created for the Civics Academy program, and we're recording it to kind of keep it for historical purposes. So let me start off with a historical photo of the Dammisch State Hospital. This is circa 1965. Keep in mind that the city of Wilsonville did not exist in 1965. It came several years later. This hospital facility was located on about 280 acres in the western portion of Wilsonville. There was no infrastructure or utilities in the city at this point. When they built the state hospital, they built a power plant, a physical power plant, in order to provide the electricity to power the hospital. They had a wastewater treatment plant that was located along Graham's Ferry Road. They had laundry and washing facilities, and they had water reservoirs for water. And the whole site was connected with a series of underground tunnels. These underground tunnels were 8-foot box culverts, and they moved laundry and employees between the buildings that you see on this site in underground tunnels. You will notice that there are no overhead power lines located in this image. And I want to point out the small, insignificant street trees that line all of the boulevards of the Dammisch State Hospital in this image. I want you to try to think about what it was like in Wilsonville in 1965. We had a population of less than 1,000 people, and this hospital comes to Wilsonville, and it brings with it massive amounts of construction jobs. Wilsonville Concrete ended up locating in the along the Willamette River in Wilsonville in order to construct these large concrete facilities. And the hospital buildings brought with them many highly educated employees, doctors, nurses, other support staff, and it literally transformed the community from the very impetus of the construction of this project. The project, the street trees are an interesting image, and we're going to focus on that in the next series of slides. As the site matures, I'm going to move forward to 2002. You can see that the urban forest on the site has become incredibly mature. It's also quite diverse. There's a wide variety of species located here. In this picture, you can see the water reservoirs located in the lower part of the site. You can see the property line in the lower right-hand part of this slide that is now the interface with the Graham Oaks Nature Park. Graham Oaks is where the farm field is located in the lower right-hand side, and everything above that has been redeveloped into the Dammisch State Hospital. This urban forest that we had to work with is really a very unique opportunity, and when we planned the Villebois Village, we were able to use a McCargian overlay system, kind of looking at where the best resources were, where the best trees were, and at no point in developing in Wilsonville is there ever a site that's considered a blank slate. Every site has inherent characteristics that are worthy of looking at and preserving and possibly incorporating into the fabric of a development plan. And that's one of the things that really makes Wilsonville a very unique and different city. In the lower part of the slide, you'll see a nursery, a big group of evergreen trees. The hospital property actually grew and propagated its own nursery stock, and they would replant trees along these streets, along the boulevards, as they as they died, as they needed to be removed. So it was a very interesting operation. The hospital building, hospital operation itself closed in 1995. So this is 7 years past closure, and within a year of this picture, we began development on the project. There were some very important tools for success for the Villebois project. It's important to note that this was a unique public-private partnership. The project was guided by 3 primary design tenets: diversity, sustainability, and connectivity. The city stood up an urban renewal district referred to as the West Side Urban Renewal District, and the city brought over $50 million worth of off-site infrastructure to serve the project. We reconstructed the I-5 Wilsonville Road interchange. We built Beckman Road across the Coffee Lake wetlands in order to serve Villebois on the northern boundary, and we constructed another road at Barber Street with another bridge on the south end, as well as a whole series of upgrades to pipes and infrastructure that was needed in order to serve the project. In exchange, the development community brought way over $50 million worth of on-site infrastructure in order to serve the residential neighborhoods that were constructed at the property. And through the urban renewal district, the frozen base, when you establish an urban renewal district, you freeze the assessed value of the area, and then you begin to utilize the tax increment for other infrastructure projects. The frozen base of Villebois at the time of establishment of that West Side Urban Renewal District was $14.9 million. If you fast forward to the 2023-24 assessed value of the same area, its value had increased to $797 million, to show you a pretty significant return on investment. The federal grants were also available at the time. There were lobbying teams that Costa Pacific employed. There was a lot of lobbying happening in Washington, D.C. at the time. The project was able to receive $20 million in federal grants in a wide variety of allocations, from sustainable rainwater to innovative urbanist planning. A wide variety of grants were obtained for the project. And then the city also utilized concurrency, vesting, and development agreements as really important tools in implementing each one of the individual phases. We had infrastructure being built concurrent with the need for it. We were vesting transportation infrastructure at the I-5 interchange, allowing for projects to secure future transportation capacity at the interchange due to the incredible shortage that we had. And the development agreements are adopted by the City Council, and those are recorded phase by phase and adopted phase by phase, and they really outline the city's responsibilities for infrastructure and the private development community's responsibility for infrastructure. So these tools for success in a complete package were really some of the driving forces that resulted in Villebois being the successful project that it is. This is a slide that shows the planning process, and there are 5 stages to this planning process. It all began with a concept plan. As I stated, back in 2001, the city adopted a concept plan that was a high-level planning document, and it contained concepts and ideas, and it contained policy language. And then we spent the next 2 years moving into the master plan, developing and adopting a very highly detailed master plan that came with a series of comprehensive plan amendments, text amendments, map amendments, and an entire zoning code that was developed to guide the development of each and every phase of the Villebois project. The city staff was a partner with the development community at the concept plan and the master plan level. And it was at the point that we completed the master plan that we separated ourselves from that and changed our hats into a regulatory role. And we began to review the specific area plans that came forward from the development community with the brand new village zoning code that we had created at the master planning level. The specific area plans are larger geographic areas, and those came with architectural pattern books, community elements books, as well as rainwater management books. So there's detailed addendums to the master plan document and the specific area plan that speak to the type of architecture with highly detailed drawings. The community elements are really the features within the parks, the shelters, the playgrounds, and then rainwater management was a toolkit of innovative rainwater management plans and programs, things like bioswales, planter boxes, a wide variety of new tools for rainwater and stormwater management that we had not previously used before. Those SAPs, or specific area plans, are then broken into PDPs, or preliminary development plans, which are really the details at the subdivision level. And this is where a lot of information is contained, and the bulk of the planning division review of these projects is at the preliminary development plan level. Those come with design and development drawings, and they are required to conform to the city's public works standards. As we move into the final development plan, it's really the equivalent of site design review, where we're looking at the type of tree, the type of plant and shrub that's being built in a park or put in a neighborhood, as well as things like the playgrounds, things like the type of roof that might be located on a picnic shelter in a park. And so the final development plan is really comprised of all of the aesthetic, the things that you're going to see on the ground when the project is complete. So together, those 5 steps make up the Villebois planning process. This is an image of the Villebois land use plan. You'll notice that there are 14 different housing categories located in the upper right-hand side of the slide. And those 14 housing categories really speak to a diverse housing stock. One of the things that makes Villebois unique is that you've got a wide variety of housing types in an incredibly diverse amount of configurations, which also come with a diverse amount of price points. The higher density development are located in the village center, which is the core of the Villebois community. The blues and the light gray colors are the highest density areas. As you move out to the edges where you have the reds and the oranges, those are lower density. So you've kind of got this transect, if you will, an urban transect of less dense on the edges to a more dense urban center in the village center, where we have some multifamily projects and we have some of the mixed use development occurring. It's also important to note that because the Department of Administrative Services owned the Dammasch State Hospital, there was a unique incorporation of mental health housing into the fabric of the Villebois community. It was the first of its kind and one of many firsts for the Villebois community. But this seamless integration of mental health housing into the fabric of the community had not been done at this scale anywhere else in the United States, and Villebois is truly a leader when it comes to implementing mental health housing seamlessly into the community. I would also note that in this entire land plan, there's only one cul-de-sac, so the tenet of connectivity was taken to heart. Everything connects. There's a tremendous amount of bikeways and pathways that I'll highlight in the next slide, but the only cul-de-sac is located on the very west side off of San Remo Court, where due to natural resources, it was unable to make a transportation connection connecting the area in the southwest portion of the project. This is the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Plan, and you have several layers of data that are contained on this graphic. You've got the natural resources layer, our Goal 5 natural resources. You've got wetlands in Coffee Lake. You have wetlands in the southwest portion of the site. You also have a comprehensive tree inventory that's been shown on this. The trees were, every tree on the site over 6 inches in diameter was mapped, and its condition was assessed, and it was put into one of 4 categories: excellent, good, moderate, and poor. And our focus in retaining and preserving trees was on the good and the excellent category. And again, we were able to create parks where the best trees were located. We were able to lay out this entire open space system, capturing some of the best natural resources throughout the entire project area. So you also have this wonderful interface with the Graham Oaks Nature Park, which is a 250-acre nature park located immediately to the south and owned and operated by Metro and planned in partnership with the city of Wilsonville. Graham Oaks Nature Park is really a microcosm of the Willamette Valley, containing all of the various habitat types found in the larger Willamette Valley, just at a smaller scale. You have scrub wetlands, you've got coniferous forests, you've got oak woodland, and you've got oak savanna among some of the habitat types that are represented on Graham Oaks. The Ice Age Tonkin Trail is a regional trail that goes through the Graham Oaks Nature Park and connects up into the ring of open spaces and regional parks that are contained within Villebois. So you go on the Ice Age Tonkin Trail from this restored Willamette Valley habitat environment, and you cross the line into Villebois and you enter into these highly manicured, highly landscape architectured urban parks. It provides for a wonderful experience. The trail never breaks. You're able to ride the trail all the way through Graham Oaks and all the way through 8 regional parks in Villebois, providing a tremendous experience, a tremendous opportunity for recreation. We have sand volleyball, many different children's playgrounds, bocce ball courts, sports fields. There's a skateboard park. There's multiple basketball courts. There's a pickleball court and tennis courts. If you love recreation and outdoor activities, Villebois is a wonderful neighborhood to live. This picture is the first phase of construction. In the lower part of the slide is a remnant of a county road called 110th. And the very first phase was built by West Hills Development, and you will see an incorporation of those bright red sweet gum trees along what was one of the existing roads at the Dammasch State Hospital, now being incorporated into the urban fabric of the Villebois neighborhood. So we have this situation where you have brand new houses constructed along a street that contains 50-plus-year-old street trees, providing this very interesting, mature urban environment with these brand new homes. Also in the foreground, you'll see a group of small incense cedar trees. Those were able to be incorporated into a little park called Cedar Park. This phase is looking from the southwest to the northeast. And again, you have a small trail stub over on the right-hand side that leads to the Ice Age Tonkin Trail at Graham Oaks. The lower part of the slide contains phase 2 and 3 of the first specific area plan for Villebois. And you can see the hospital building up in the upper part of the slide. The Dammasch State Hospital building still exists in these slides, while brand new multifamily housing is being constructed by Trammell Crow Residential. Several hundred apartment buildings, apartment units were constructed while the hospital building was still in existence. And in the center part of the slide, you see trees that have been incorporated into what is now Palermo Park and Sophia Park to the left. So both of those parks are just beginning to take shape. Zooming in on the village center, you have a podium building that is on the piazza. It is to this day our only existing mixed-use project, a 5-story building with retail on the ground floor. And you'll begin to see the Dammasch State Hospital building being demolished in the background. Originally in the master plan, it was anticipated that those buildings in the back could be adaptively reused into residential housing. But due to modern day seismic requirements, those upgrades that were necessary to bring it to modern building codes were cost prohibitive, and the hard decision had to be made to remove those hospital buildings. And the new construction took over those areas. So this is the street plan for the Villebois project, and it shows you a wide variety of street categories, everything from arterials and collectors, all the way down to a wide variety of residential cross sections, down to nature paths and footpaths and bike lanes. These slides show an integration of the various disciplines that are a part of the community development department. We have a civil engineering team in community development, and we have a strong planning team. And together we work to create these master plan documents with the traffic engineers and the civil engineers really leading the design of the street network, and the planners coming in and complementing those street networks with the appropriate right tree in the right place and the urban forestry component, as well as the rainwater management component, which is integrated throughout the Villebois community. This is a picture of the composite utility plan demonstrating the large water distribution lines, or the trunk lines, that are necessary to serve all of the various residential development. The blue lines represent looping water lines through the Villebois project, and the orange lines with the arrows represent the trunk lines necessary to provide sanitary sewer service. And these maps demonstrate how we connect back into the city and the city's existing network of pipes. So these composite utility plans are really where the civil engineers spend the majority of their time. And again, these are important important maps that have guided the entire construction of the project, and we have stormwater component depicted as well on this particular conceptual composite utility plan. Again, going back to the street cross sections, every one of those colors on that street plan has an associated cross section that shows the dimensions of things like how wide the sidewalk is, how wide the travel lanes are, how wide the medians are, and the types of trees. And there are entire lists of trees and tree books that provide specific species along particular streets. Again, always thinking and trying to provide the right size tree in the right location, and building this entire beautiful leafy neighborhood. Again, this is where the planners and the engineers come together, and our disciplines are clearly all demonstrated in these series of slides. So now I'm going to transition a little bit into the natural resources world and speak a little bit to the innovative stormwater program that we have in Villebois. This is a picture on the upper left of Palermo Park. This is the large upper bowl, and you'll see an overflow structure for stormwater management. These parks were constructed as dual-use facilities. The basketball court in the lower part of the site actually fills with water in extremely high rain events, and it's designed that way, as is this upper bowl. So the basketball court bowl fills up with as much as 4 feet of water in extremely high rain events, and then slowly drains out over time over a period of about a day and a half, and is reduced through some overflow structures. And if the water gets to be too high, this upper area then can begin to fill up as well, and that overflow structure would allow for that to drain off into the rest of the stormwater system. So these are innovative dual-use facilities, and land was at such a premium in Villebois that it was strongly undesirable to dedicate large detention basins and just set them aside for pure purposes of stormwater. We wanted to be able to be more nimble than that and bring unique facilities to the project. So these dual-use recreation, 360 days a year, and then maybe an inundated 5 days out of a typical year really provides for that balance in stormwater management and active recreation. And I have to say, when I programmed the neighborhood out here from a recreational standpoint, boating was not one of the things that I contemplated. However, the first time I saw the ponds fill with water, there were folks who brought kayaks and canoes out to these bodies of water and began to paddle around, demonstrating yet another recreational use that you can do in Villebois, which was quite incredible. We built Beckman Road at the same time that the Villebois project was undergoing construction, and this is the eastern leg of Beckman Road leading into the Villebois community. And what you have here is some innovative new street designs that show curb cuts along the road, allowing for the rainwater to drain off of the street into a bioswale, and then the plant material uptakes the pollutants off from the runoff that comes from the street. And you also have a brand new sidewalk that's constructed here that is a pervious concrete construction, allowing for the rainwater not to run off of the surface of the sidewalk, but allowing the rainwater to infiltrate directly into the surface of the sidewalk. So again, a wide variety of new concepts were emerging in stormwater management, and the city of Wilsonville was an early implementer in many of those concepts. And this is the road after the landscaping had been matured at the end of that first year. This is a picture of Beckman Road crossing the Coffee Lake wetlands. You'll notice the roundabout on the far side in the upper left-hand part of the slide. There was a significant amount of mitigation that needed to occur to offset the impacts associated with this road. There were wetlands that were filled to build the road, and the city created the meandering channel on the upper side of the road to allow the rainwater to again pass through a lot of vegetation and become cleaner on its way down and entering into Seeley Ditch, which then takes it to the south towards the Willamette River. You'll see also a bridge structure along Beckman Road. The road is at grade and then rises up, and there's a reason that we have a bridge there, and it's to provide wildlife crossings. A wide variety of wildlife passages had been studied in this area, and the movement of wildlife had been documented, and the road was designed specifically to consider and to accommodate the passage of wildlife in the Coffee Lake area From these upland islands that we have on the right-hand side of the slide, the wildlife move up and down the Coffee Lake Wetland Corridor, as well as across the Coffee Lake Wetland Corridor. And I'm going to speak to some of those wildlife passages. This shows the mitigation site on the south side of the road. There was a large there was mitigation on both sides, the north side and the south side. This was planted with willow, and the city is required to make sure that it survives to a certain level and has to prepare mitigation documentation for the regulatory agencies that show that our wetland mitigation is successful over a period of time. So these wildlife passages are really unique in the Wilsonville community. We were an early implementer of wildlife passages. We have some of the longest documented wildlife passage studies that have occurred anywhere in the state of Oregon. This slide shows you some of the wildlife that we have in the community. We've got western pond turtles. We obviously have coyote, red-legged frogs, which are a rare species. We have the common deer, and we have things as rare and unique as mink. We also have cougar and bobcat, and we've had bear in the community as well. So Wilsonville is an incredibly rich environment for wildlife, and we peacefully coexist as we've been building our city and protecting significant natural resources and trying to accommodate the movement and passage of wildlife across new roads that are built so that they can remain safe, so that they don't become roadkill, so that we can harmoniously kind of coexist together in this beautiful city. So the bridge itself was designed to provide for large mammal crossings as well as to allow for higher floodwaters to move through. In the lower left-hand slide, you'll see one of our inspectors, Michael Carr. He's an engineering inspector. He's got his hand up, demonstrating that the clearance of that bridge is about 7 feet tall. That would accommodate a deer, even a deer with some antlers perhaps. So that's the largest culvert crossing. And then on the upper right, you can see how the city's mitigation channels end up connecting into the Seeley Ditch Channel, bringing all that stormwater down to the south. There are a wide variety of wildlife crossings in Beckman Road and in Kinsman Road on the east side of the Villebois neighborhood. These are some images of some of those various culverts. There are box culverts with natural bottoms. There are round culverts. There's some deer coming out of a culvert on Kinsman Road in the lower left. And one of the cool findings, it's a little bit difficult to see here, but I want to bring that arrow up and show you that is a mink coming out of one of the wildlife crossings. Now these wildlife crossings are important, and there are protective fences along Beckman Road and Kinsman Road that basically preclude the animals from coming up onto the deck of the road. And it guides the animals down to where these road crossings, these animal crossings are located. And our Public Works Department reports that they've never seen roadkill on these streets, especially large mammals. The animals have a way to move back and forth underneath the roadway safely. And we work with a scientist to document that movement. We've got a researcher who does track plating and has used photographs of these culverts and documents a wide variety of animals. She looks at the footprints and documents what animals, species, mammals, birds, reptiles are moving through these areas, and has created at this point 2 decades worth of documentation regarding wildlife crossings. So it's one of the longest continuous studies of wildlife movement associated with a road anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. And this is an amphibian wall or a reptile wall. It gives you another example of how we're thinking of even the smallest critters and how we're trying to accommodate their passage of these major transportation facilities. So the next part of the story involves the fire sprinkler system that was put into each and every single home that's located in the Villebois village. So the city uses an urban renewal task force to advise us on urban renewal issues. And when we established the West Side Urban Renewal District, and we were looking at a residential neighborhood of over 500 acres, the fire district did have concerns, and they were looking at possibly having to construct a new fire station in order to accommodate the Villebois village, which is a significant cost and comes with long-term long-term investments, and then the staffing that's needed in order to run that facility. So the city worked closely, and at the time the fire district was interested in residential fire sprinklers. So in order to mitigate the impacts of this large residential area, and because we were establishing an urban renewal district, the city was able to bring residential fire sprinklers into each and every single home in the Villebois neighborhood, even single-family detached homes. This is the first project of its kind in the United States at the time that any of us were aware of that had incorporated residential fire sprinklers. The city used urban renewal dollars to pay for the SDCs, or the systems development charges, that were a part of the impacts to the water system. And it was through this collaboration with the fire district that they were able to not have to construct a new fire station in order to serve Villebois, and that any fire that occurred would hopefully be put out pretty quickly with the fire sprinklers that were installed. So this was a national model, this incorporation of fire sprinklers into each and every residential structure. And again, it's a very unique approach of the city utilizing some of the increment in order to offset some of the fees that are associated with building those facilities. So when the city does use urban renewal, it works very hard through this task force format in order to listen to the taxing districts and to try to bring things to these projects that benefit those taxing districts. We've also done certain things for the Westland-Wilsonville School District as part of what was the year 2000 Urban Renewal District, where there were investments made at the gymnasium facility at the high school. $1 million was put towards the gymnasium at the brand new high school when it was constructed in the early 90s, as well as a wide variety of sports improvements, fields, AstroTurf, concession stands. So again, when we do these projects, we're constantly talking to our taxing districts, understanding the concerns that they have, and then trying to bring amenities and elements to try to offset the impacts that they might experience through the creation and duration of an urban renewal district. Working for Wilsonville for 30 years, there is a lot of opportunity for success. There's been so many great projects that I've had the opportunity to work on. Being able to be a part of a project like Villebois that has been developed over the past 25 years, to be able to be there from the beginning all the way through it to the end, and to see it come together the way that it had, so consistent with the vision that was established in that 2003 master plan, and to be able to go out there today and walk through the neighborhoods and see how happy the people are who live there, to see the social network that they've created amongst themselves, to see their interactions. I've never met anybody who lives in Villebois who doesn't say they love it. And in fact, I had a planning commissioner who once told me, who lived in the neighborhood, who once told me that she feels like she has 200 neighbors who she could trust with her children at any given time. Talk about a social network. So the people out there know each other, they hang out together, they have parades in the summer. The interaction around the parks and the open spaces and the sense of community that the project provides is truly gratifying for a city planner and for somebody who does what I do, which is trying to create livable communities and places that people really want to be. That's a tremendous feeling. That's a tremendous sense of satisfaction. So I would definitely share that as one of my high points. I've also worked extensively on the Graham Oaks Nature Park, and to be able to take the Graham Oaks Nature Park from a farm field and be able to prepare a master plan, to be able to work with our partners at Metro to come up with a restoration plan, to design the trails and lay the trails out, to be able to go through and restore the land into those Willamette Valley microtypes, and to be able to seamlessly connect from this natural environment into those manicured parks, again, it's just a tremendous sense of pride that I get. I get a sense of pride from a lot of different parts of Wilsonville, but those are a couple of the more significant accomplishments that I've been able to achieve over the years. And that's an overview of the Villebois project. I want to say that we're in 2025, and Villebois is an award-winning new urbanist community with diverse housing types at a wide variety of price points. The community is highly desirable and has one of the most diverse and abundant park systems in any residential neighborhood anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. It truly is a special, unique, livable community, and I encourage you to go visit it and experience the wonderful parks system. I would say by all measurements, This public-private partnership has been a huge success, and I have been honored to be a part of the team that has helped bring that to the community. Thank you very much.